Hey, Karen.
Hey, Anita. How's it going?
You ready to start our podcast this week?
I am ready. This week, we are going to be talking about the inherent misogyny in the Republican Party and specifically the attacks on Taylor Swift and the threat that women have against the GOP in the upcoming election. We are going to talk about Donald Trump, his record, what we know about him, and the threat that he poses to our country in 2024, should he be reinstalled.
Blue wave, we rise to save the day. Only me, only you can let our hearts sail away on a blue wave.
Today, Anita, I am happy to announce that we are joined by our very own Meemaw, Sue Cohen, otherwise known as Sue from Rockville. She flew in from Australia to join us.
I actually flew in from New Zealand. It's even further.
New Zealand.
Oh, I'm sorry, New Zealand.
thing.
My bad.
Hey guys, thank you so much for having me on the show. I love the podcast and I'm very happy to be a small part of it.
Oh,
Well, thank you. Thank you for being here.
We're happy to have you. So, we're talking about the thing all week has been with Taylor Swift, and all of these misogynist pigs on the right going after her. And so I do have a soundbite that I wanted to play that is actually, this is Fox Sports' Colin Cowherd. It was all over social media. I just want to play that for us.
I love him. Drake on everything. Spike Lee, Knicks games. Eminem, Michigan sporting events. We celebrate it. 80s, 90s, Jack Nicholson Laker games is cool. Saw Jack. But a talented and beautiful woman is on the air, one who would never pay attention to lonely men, and it bothers them. There's a stat out there, it's kind of uncomfortable for you sad guys, that 50% of men never have real intimacy with a woman. That means the other 50% have multiple intimate relationships with women. And those ones that don't are angry and sad and lonely, and they are often misogynistic and resent women who didn't give them the time they think they deserve. We celebrate all these goofballs jumping on tables in Buffalo and cheese hats and men and Matthew McConaughey and Drake and Jack Nicholson, men and Eminem and it's cool and can I get a selfie and I can't believe I saw. And a young, attractive, beautiful, talented woman comes on for 25 seconds. And you're bothered. Again, judge people by the silly things that bother them. This says nothing, this anger. This says nothing about Taylor Swift. It says everything about the men bothered by it.
Yeah, that was on Fox Sports. That's kind of remarkable because that's a different audience, too, he's speaking to.
Right.
It's not a political audience. It's just, and Rachel Bittencofer talked about this, how this thing with Taylor Swift has gotten a whole new audience, just kind of aware of what's going on. Mm-hmm. And honestly, all they're doing by constantly attacking her is just these people that probably didn't pay much attention to politics are now like, why are they, attacking her? Mm-hmm. I like Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's hilarious. Honestly,
It is.
Absolutely hilarious. I mean, nothing says pathetic like a grown man threatened by a young woman who happens to be successful. And I love the fact that they've stuck themselves in a lose-lose situation because either they are going to root against Kansas City, which means they're rooting for Nancy Pelosi's 49ers.
Yes.
That's
so
right.
They don't know what they're going to do. They don't know how much beer they can drink. I guess they're going to just watch the Super Bowl for the commercials, I guess.
I guess
don't
so.
know.
But they're going to be paying attention.
But I have created a little card that I hand out to all these little incels and MAGA morons, and I give it to them, and I'm like, look, I see your panties, your little snowflake panties are all in a twist because some young woman happens to tell people that young people to vote.
Yes.
The crime of Taylor Swift is she encourages young people to vote.
Yep.
And what threatens them is the fact that we know that young people lean Democratic.
Yes.
Young people are tolerant. They're loving. They're accepting. They want climate change. They want gun control.
Yep.
They want everything that the Democratic Party stands for, and they want nothing. Absolutely nothing from Trump or Russia or the Republican Party, but then I repeat myself.
Well, it's not only that she told people to vote. She also endorsed Joe Biden in 2020. She came out for reproductive rights for women. She's dating a guy that took a knee for Colin Kaepernick, who did a Bud Light ad. And then he endorsed, he did a Pfizer ad. There's a lot of things going on here. She also has put herself out there a number of times. She came out against Marsha Blackburn, against Republicans. She's been very vocal, pro-LGBTQ. She's just a decent person. And you can't be a decent person and be a MAGA.
100%. This, again, yes. And, of course, all the things she represents, because she represents her generation.
Right.
Who
That's right.
believes that? My grandkids, my granddaughters are Swifties. And that's who they are. My 16-year-old will register to vote in a year, about a year and a couple months. And you know what she's going to do? She's going to register as a Democrat, like her mom, like her dad, like her older brother, because she knows her Mima over here isn't really giving her a choice. No.
Well, that's true, too. We kind of indoctrinate our kids that way.
Well, and I think she totally stands or symbolizes for these guys, while the Republican Party and they're, running around passing legislation, putting in Supreme Court justices to enact or overturn Roe v. Wade. It's clearly about controlling women. And here you have this woman who is just has so much talent, is self-made. She has taken the music world by the balls, award after award after award, dates who she wants to date, write songs about who she wants to write songs about, and they just have and she's beautiful, and that just makes them feel certain things and then when she comes out and she endorses the people and supports the people and is an ally to the people that they hate, that really bothers them.
And here's a good contrast. Bruce Springsteen. Okay, Springsteen has had a 50-year career. He is one of the most ardently pro-union people in the music business, who makes no bones about his. He endorsed Obama. He endorsed Biden. He's going to endorse Biden again. He goes out there. He collects money for poor people. Every concert of his. How much of a backlash has any of these MAGA morons?
Never.
Name one.
Never.
Because he's a guy, and guys can do it, but women can't. This has gone on. Gloria Steinem said that that older women are the only group that grow more radical with age. To which I say, boy, howdy.
Yeah, that's true.
That is true.
I believe that.
That's true. It's like, listen, no more bullshit. It's like we got your sperm, we have our babies.
It's interesting because that new poll that came out had women, Biden up with women and leading among women by 22 points over Trump. People are hearing this. He was up like 5 or 10 points from the last time they did this poll. It was a Quinnipiac poll. And women are angry, and women are seeing what's going on. After the E. Jean Carroll verdict, I think just something, and also, of course, after Roe v. Wade was overturned, something broke in the Republican Party. They are out of their minds now. They just keep doing the same stupid things that they're just pissing women off more. They keep doing these abortion. They're making it even worse in states like Texas and in states like South Carolina. where there are places in Texas where you can be arrested traveling while pregnant.
Yeah, I think that first of all, I do not understand women who vote against other women.
Right.
I'm
I know.
absolutely puzzled by women who are willing to deny fellow women their rights. That it absolutely baffles me. I sort of understand it in terms of intellectually, but emotionally, I cannot get with anybody who would say it's okay for me, but not for thee.
Right.
I understand men who may choose, who think they know. But let me reiterate abortion. My two simple rules. I've always felt that it's important to keep in mind that the issue of abortion is simply reduced to two rules. Rule one: if you do not believe in abortion, don't have one.
Right.
No
Yeah.
one is forcing you to
Right.
terminate a pregnancy you want. If you want to get pregnant and you want that
That's right.
baby, you can have that baby if you're lucky and your health is good and all goes well. And if you don't believe in abortion, don't have one.
That's right.
And the second rule is very simple. If you have a dick, don't be one.
Right.
You
I also want to
see,
talk about the number of women who are being forced to give birth to their rapist
That's-
baby.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Okay.
63,000 of them.
Yep.
26,000. Remember Greg Abbott said he was going to eliminate rape here in Texas? So
Yes.
don't worry, we can do this abortion ban
Yep.
with no exceptions.
Yep.
Even though there's exceptions are bullshit, and we've talked about that. Well, guess what? Texas leads the country in women being forced to give birth to their rapist baby. Over 26,000 women in Texas were forced to give birth to their rapist baby since Texas banned abortion.
Yeah.
So
I honestly am a little astounded that the women of Texas, and I know that means you too, Anita, have not gone on a general strike and shut the damn state down. Stop working, everyone. Stop working, and then throw him out. Throw out him and Patrick and that disgusting
I know.
Paxton. I don't understand how so many women have ceded that autonomy. But I live in a blue state. I've always lived in a blue state. I've always surrounded myself. I mean, I've lived in New York, Pennsylvania, and Maryland. And I could not have raised my children in a state where losing rights. I could not have lived for myself without having full blue access to the rights guaranteed in our Constitution to all of us.
Well, the problem in Texas is we're not as red as people think we are. We have a voter suppression problem here, of course.
Yep.
We have extreme gerrymandering. The Republicans have gotten hold of the state, and they've made it impossible for Democrats to win in it, pretty much. So there are so many things against Democrats winning in Texas. I mean, was it Ken Paxton, the Attorney General, that should be in prison?
Yes.
Was bragging about how Texas would have been like Georgia and gone for Biden had it not been for them stopping vote by mail.
Yeah.
You can't vote by mail in Texas unless you're disabled, and then you have to prove it. And there's a whole process you have to go through. I know because I've had to do it. Or you're over 65. It's very difficult to vote by mail here. I mean, in Houston, they've rigged it so that whatever Houston votes for, they can change the outcome.
Yep.
They can decide.
Yeah.
The Republican legislature can decide, we don't like the way you voted, Houston.
You know, what I'd love to see is not Biden shut down the border. I would love Biden to have federal troops come and arrest Greg Abbott, Dan Patrick, and Ken Paxton. And show this country that federal oversees state.
Yes.
And that they have no right to try to circumvent or ignore Supreme Court rulings, period.
Yeah,
And that's where I want to see a show of force.
So at what point do you think that is going to happen? Because we know that that's what should happen. At what point do you feel that is going to happen? You know, because we're in an election year.
I don't know.
You know?
I don't know, but let me just say something. Arizona and California also have border with Mexico. They're not having this problem. This is a Greg Abbott problem.
Yes.
This is a Gina problem.
Yeah,
that's correct. Here's what I trust about Biden, even though people have a hard time remembering this. My oldest daughter will be 51 this month. my oldest kid.
Mhm.
And Joe Biden has been in Washington in government service since her birth.
Wow.
Her whole life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He has been in Washington. He knows the ins and outs of working, on the Hill with Congress as a congressman, a senator, a VP, a president. And so even though I would like him to have done it yesterday, I'm going to trust that he knows how to play the game to get the things he needs.
Yep.
And the level of success he has achieved in 3 years, which is unbelievably astounding.
He does not get enough credit
and
for it.
completely underreported, as we know.
Yes.
What you're seeing, at least, is some fracturing in the Republican Party, and how they're bringing themselves down.
Yeah.
You see arch conservatives like Dan Crenshaw or conservatives like James Langford going after their own members. Finally.
Tom Tillis. Exactly. Right. Well, and I love that the media and, that it's being exposed that they are taking their marching orders from Donald Trump. And this is a shadow government that is going on. I think that we need to make more of that. That this is a big threat. This is listen, the Confederacy is alive and well in the Republican Party. These people are, this man led an insurrection, okay? He is using the courts at every turn to try and delay so that there is no justice. And I'm sorry, I don't know about you, but the DOJ, and it is what it is, we can't do anything to change it. But my God, fuck Merrick Garland and the DOJ for not starting right out of the gate. They should have appointed an IG to go investigate
he's also
this.
telling them to ignore the Supreme Court.
Yes.
Can you imagine if a blue state tried to just ignore the Supreme Court? Like after Roe v. Wade was overturned?
Yeah. No.
This is just but they've done this before, Karen. George Wallace, segregation now, segregation forever.
Yeah.
Yep.
This is nothing new. It's the same playbook. They're fascists. They've always been fascists, especially here in the South.
So there's two pieces I want to add to this. First of all, I think it's really important for us to keep the focus on the GOP because Trump never changed them.
Right.
He revealed them.
Exactly.
This is who they have always been at their core. Trump just let their freak flag fly. He just said, go for it. I am the worst of a human being, and you now have permission to be your own worst miserable selves.
And you'll still have these people supporting you.
Well, because there's a pipeline of money.
Right.
People still have not recognized how much money has gone from Russia into the coffers of the Republican Party, not just Trump.
Well,
and
they've been exposed, and they're finally having the comeuppance of the radicalizing the base. Anita and I were talking about that a little bit earlier, that it's not even so much as Donald, it's the base. It is the base. They have radicalized this base. They have cultivated them. They have made them so angry and pointed a finger at other people.
Right.
And it was always there.
Yeah.
Yep, it was always there. Russia took advantage of that.
Yes. 100%.
The rich get richer and don't pay their taxes, which falls on the burden of the middle and working classes, who then are told to beware of the lowest class because they're coming after them. It's been always the GOP poison of hate and lies and ignorance, and beware of the people that are always pointing down rather than looking up at the billionaires who are robbing them blind.
Yes.
It's a Southern strategy.
Yeah.
It's always been. I do want to add one thing. So I took a 2-week break. And Karen and Anita, as someone who also is a regular caller into Stephanie Miller, me stepping away from politics for 2 weeks is a major, major big deal. But I sort of promised myself I would take full advantage of this once in a lifetime, bucket list trip that Peter and I did. And I would just keep an eye out, but I did no posting. People were looking for me. I didn't even respond. And I can tell you that coming back at 2 weeks, I came back when E. Jean Carroll was awarded the $83.3 million. That was like, okay, we're going home in a day. I got to do this.
Yep.
I'm back.
Yeah.
what I observe by stepping back is that we do have two dire threats to American democracy. One is, of course, the Republican Party.
Yep.
They absolutely are embracing fascism. Trump's cult loves it. They want him to be a dictator. They're proud of saying that, which makes them completely un-American. But as we continue to discuss and we expose as often as we can, especially on Media Busters, and God love how much we miss Eric Boehlert every darn day.
Yep.
Corporate media, as I call them, the GOP lapdogs, are doing their best to keep normalizing Trump, to keep normalizing fascism, and New York Times may be the worst because they supposedly have credibility. You know who Fox and Newsmax and all those morons are. You know where they're going to come in, OAN and stuff. But it's when the papers who have had the tradition of being, you know, the old gray lady, the standard around the world, the Washington Post, the home of Watergate. But they're not the home of Watergate. They're owned by Jeff Bezos. And their leash is very short. And the New York Times, back in 1924, 100 years ago, was talking about how Hitler learned his lesson.
I know.
Has come out of jail and has now gone home and is out of politics forever. They have always normalized.
He was doing a good job in Germany. They also,
So we have to vigilantly expose the corporate media. You know, what did Les Moonves say in 2016? And I promised to shut up. He said, Donald Trump is terrible for America, but he's really very good for the bottom line.
He's very good for that. And also, Joe Biden is challenging the status quo. That's what he's doing.
Yep.
Because he's raising corporate taxes. He's turning around throwing out the trickle down economics. Finally, 40 years of that.
Yep.
And he stood in the picket line.
Yep.
With the UAW.
Yep.
All these things presidents used to be afraid of doing.
Yes, and
he gets beat up for that.
Talk about messaging, Democratic messaging. Everything, all of the policies, you know, and I know, Anita, you can rattle everything off. The most progressive policies passed by any modern president.
FDR.
Right, since FDR. And, you know, and yet the mainstream media still successfully can peddle this narrative that Joe Biden is old and get Democrats. I had a conversation yesterday. We go to the opera once a month, my dad and my stepmom and my sister, and we go and enjoy the opera, and then we go out and we have dinner, and they have a friend who accompanies them as well. And he's done this a couple times where he's parroting this narrative about Joe Biden not being well, and he votes Democratic. He will vote Democratic. Yeah. But even he is sitting there talking about Joe Biden being too old and talking about
I've heard that from Democrats.
Who could we possibly have that would be younger?
It drives me crazy.
And I know. And I'm just like, and so I, of course, and my dad, it was so funny because he was like, you know, patting my back because he knew what was coming. And I just let him have it. I said, I don't understand. You're sitting here with my dad, who's 85 years old. He teaches snowboarding. He runs. He kayaks. He canoes. He bikes. Joe Biden bikes. He is perfectly capable of, and he's got vast experience. He is one of the most qualified and experienced people to ever hold the office of the presidency. And he has gotten all of these things accomplished. It is the media. If it's not getting out there, if people are not aware of it,
it's also on the left, though. I see these progressives that don't want to give him credit, and it drives me crazy because Joe Biden is doing all these things that they say this is what they stood for. This is what they were all about, was, you know, standing with labor unions. That's what Joe Biden has done. Yep. He actually appointed a labor board, the most pro-labor board we've had since FDR.
Right.
He enacted some rules so that if the corporate head union fight, if they want to start a union and they interfere with it, the union automatically wins that fight. the union is automatically established. So, I mean, I don't understand. There's so many different things, and the things that he hasn't gotten done. We had the child tax credit. We talked about that. That decreased child poverty by 40%. All these wonderful things. These people were getting $250 to $300 a month per child. There was no means testing, which is always a problem.
Yep.
And the only reason why we didn't continue it was because Republicans blocked it. And he's also doing with pharmaceutical companies. He's negotiating prices for Medicare for pharmaceuticals. For how long have we been asking Democrats to do that?
This episode of TruBlu Politics is brought to you by Night Sky Woodworks, featuring gorgeous products like cutting boards, cheese and charcuterie boards, and beautiful tea light holders, all finely handcrafted in their Chicago, Illinois wood shop, all of which have eye-catching designs and make the perfect complementary piece for any kitchen or living room. If you use code TruBlu, TRUBLU, at checkout on their Etsy shop, you get 10% off any order, which is a pretty good deal if you ask me. Go check out their in-stock designs today or message your custom order request on their Etsy shop today by visiting etsy.com/shop/Night Sky Woodworks, NITESKYE Woodworks, and use code TRUBLU at checkout for 10% off. We couldn't do this without our loyal listeners and love hearing from you, so please give us some stars and a review if you are so inclined wherever you get this podcast. TruBlu Politics is sponsored by our wonderful TruBlu crew of listeners and our supporters on Patreon. As a small startup podcast, our Patreon members help us pay the bills to keep our podcast running and also allow us to keep investing in equipment upgrades for even better quality content in the future. When you sign up as a monthly TruBlu crew member at even just $5, you instantly unlock our private TruBlu pod chat and full episodes a day earlier than everyone else without ads in the middle. Upwards from there, we've made even more perks available, like having your name shouted out at the end of our show, and a personal Zoom call with me and Anita to discuss ways to overthrow the GOP. If you would like to become a Patreon subscriber at any level, go to patreon.com/TruBlu, TRUBLU, Politics Podcast. And thank you very much. Mwah.
So let's circle back to the answer to the question about Joe Biden's age.
Right.
Because it goes right back to the issue of Republican misogyny.
Mm-hmm.
All right. They're terrified. There is a young person who's going to be president if anything happens to Joe Biden.
Mm-hmm.
Her name happens to be Kamala Harris.
Mm-hmm.
She is supremely qualified to take over if need be.
Yep.
She's the vice president and has been for the last 3 years. She was a prosecutor. She was an attorney general. She was a senator. She is extremely well steeped and knowledgeable in both, domestic and foreign affairs, and she herself would make an excellent POTUS.
Oh, absolutely.
So,
yeah.
But they're terrified because the misogyny.
Yes.
And
it's
racism.
not just that Joe is old, but God forbid a woman gets to sit in the Oval Office.
Mm-hmm.
That's so it all comes full circle. Every time you scratch a little bit of the surface, what you find is the hate, that deeply bred hatred of women.
Yes.
And especially strong women.
Yes.
I recommend people look on Lincoln Project. They did a whole thread yesterday on strong women who scare Trump and the GOP.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see why. And they go through each person, from our Supreme Court justices to
Hillary Clinton,
and Taylor Swift and all that. I do want to just go one thing. The other thing is that E.J. Dionne, who is a wonderful opinion writer for the Post, did a great piece early in the week. I think actually it was maybe over the weekend. And I'm just going to read this. This is a message to his fellow members of the media. It is time for everyone, media especially, to face up to the actual choice between constitutional democracy and authoritarianism, between a normal human being and a self-involved, spiteful madman, between a government that has performed well and a regime that would gyrate from one personal obsession to another. That's what this election is about.
Yes. And let me just say, and I will go ahead and link to that. I want to link to the Lincoln Project, and we'll link to that as well, if you can, send me that. I do. It also, I just want to say, speaking to the misogyny, this is how widespread misogyny is. Even the two candidates in the Republican Party, the abhorrent things that Nikki Haley
my God, I know.
About President Obama and
I was thinking about that.
And basically Kamala Harris too, alluding to Kamala Harris, and we're going to have another one of them. I can't remember the exact. Yes.
No, Obama was so divisive, and now we can't have another one.
Yes.
We can't have another one of those.
Does Nikki Haley know she's not white?
I guess she doesn't.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, she and Kamala Harris is of Indian descent too. So
Yeah.
No. Her first name is
Nimrata. Yeah.
Nimrata.
Exactly right.
And Donald Trump won't let you forget that. So,
no.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
This disconnect, this emotional and intellectual disconnect that they gyrate themselves into the GOP would be funny if it wasn't so dangerous to us.
Yes.
Yeah. It used to be funny because they've been like this for a long time. But now it's become it has become a threat to democracy itself.
Yes. 100%.
They've always been working towards this. It's just that they finally got somebody who was shameless enough to, just say it out loud.
Yeah. And if we didn't know, of course, like we kept hearing in the lead up to 2016 that it's like, oh, it'll be okay. There are guardrails. And even the mainstream media was peddling that bullshit narrative that it's like, there are going to be people around him, handlers and, people that know more about it. And of course, he'll take guidance, right? He has no ability to have anybody guide him through anything. Okay, he is.
The people that work for him are coming out and telling us how dangerous he is.
Yes, exactly. So I want to play this. This is, so we'll kind of move in now to who Donald Trump has always been and who he still is, and we're just going to let George Conway kind of talk a little bit here.
And who I unfortunately had to watch over the last several years. It's the same Donald Trump. He is, as Judge Kaplan, the presiding judge in this case, said, he's somebody who can't control himself. And he can't control himself because he's a deeply disturbed, a deeply morally bereft human being who has no conscience, has no morality, has no empathy, has no remorse, and is sadistic, as we saw during the trial, and as the jurors saw in the trial, right in front of their very eyes, that he had nothing but contempt for the woman that he raped and libeled and defamed so many times. This is a sick man. He is a bad man. And what's most disturbing about this is that so many people make this about politics, that they want to support him for whatever reason or because they've done it in the past, and they pretend that he is not who he is. And many of them, some of them are ignoramuses, but many of them in the upper reaches of his political party know better. They know who he is. They talk about who he is behind closed doors. They know he is an evil man. They know he is a sick man. They talk about his mental deficiencies, his psychological disorders. They talk about what a pathological liar he is. And then when somebody asks them to go on the record to talk about it, they say, oh, no comment. I didn't see the tweet. They say, like a presidential candidate recently did, I haven't been following the case or something like that. And they're all lying to protect a pathological liar. And it's about time that these people look themselves in the mirror and start telling the truth. Okay, it's better for them in the long run to start telling the truth and admit that they've been covering up for a sexual predator, a criminal, a thief, a man who does not deserve to hold any office, let alone the highest office in the land. But this is, again, it's not about politics. It's about right and wrong. And people need to start looking at it that way.
Well,
Start telling the truth. These are the same people that they want to try and tell us are going to be. They were the checks. They were going to be the checks and balances. They were going to be the guardrails, right? These same people that he's talking about. That even when there's a little bit of accountability here, finally this motherfucker is getting some accountability. Okay. By the way, in the court of law, the party of law and order, right? And Mitch McConnell saying that he will be held accountable for what he's done, right? No.
Yeah. Well, you know what bothers me is these mentally ill people that are supporting him. They have monetized mental illness. That's what the Republican Party have done.
Yes.
They have the mentally ill people. You see them all the time. They play these clips of these people. They're delusional.
Yep.
They're paranoid, and they've managed to just use these people and
So
get
can
them
I give you guys? I'm sorry. Go ahead, Anita.
No, go ahead. Go ahead, Sue.
I was going to say, can I give you a brief history lesson on Donald Trump?
Please do.
Yes,
So,
please.
Those of us who lived in New York City in the 70s knew who Donald Trump was. From day one, he was a slimy grifter. He was a self-promoting, ignorant fool who would do anything for some attention and profiled himself. He had fake names that he would call and call up newspapers and places. He used John Barron and other names. He was always self-promoting. But I have some inside information because what the press has failed to do in terms of failing due diligence will never be forgiven by me. And this is why I fight as hard as I can, because Donald Trump went to Fordham University for 2 years and flunked out. His big brother then was BFFs with the head of UPenn's admissions and paid to have his brother admit.
Is that Mary's dad?
I cannot remember which brother it was. It might have been.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, it was the older brother.
Yeah.
So he paid his buddy, got him into Penn. Now, the Wharton School is not he did not get his MBA from Wharton. He got a finance degree from the University of Penn / Wharton School. And the way he got it is he bought test results. And since we know somebody within our larger family who attended classes with him, the fact is he didn't attend classes. He didn't go to school. He had no friends at Penn. Every weekend he got in his big blue Cadillac or whatever color it was, drove back to New York City where he could get hyped up. And the New York Times was always happy to put him in the society columns everywhere. There's good old
Page 6, yeah.
Page 6 or whatever it was. So he barely graduated, and that's why you've never seen his CV. You've never seen his real GPA. He barely graduated. His parents couldn't handle him, which is why he went to military school. And so here's a guy who inherited $400 million and pissed it all away. 6 bankruptcies, a failure at every level, but he was white. He was rich, and he knew how to play the game, and he had powerful people around him who were into him, like Roy Cohn, who worked for Joe McCarthy. And if you don't know who Roy Cohn is, look it up, because the word scumbag and Roger Stone go right with them. So here you have a guy who continues to get, despite all his failures, he's barely able to read. As a child development specialist, I would tell you, I'm absolutely sure he has ADHD. He has attentional issues. He can't stay focused. He's barely literate. I think he's dyslexic. I've seen him switch letters over and over again. So he's gotten away with basically murder, which is why he could boast that. And then when he really ran out of money from the American side, Russia stepped in and started giving him hundreds of millions of dollars through, through Deutsche Bank and just ask the people over in Scotland, they were not getting paid. And all of a sudden, over a 3-month period, they went from getting no money to getting paid in cash.
Yeah, Eric bragged about how they were getting all their money from Russia.
And that is true. So then you keep going forward. And let me just go, last thing I want to say about how terrible the press is that without a doubt, in November of 2019, Trump suffered a small stroke. the emergency visit to Walter Reed,
Yep.
and all you had to do was observe the right side weakness, the slurred speech. When he walked down that ramp at West Point, it was because he was recovering. Why did he need two hands to hold a glass? All of this was evident. Now, it's one thing for the press to be respectful of FDR, who had polio, and not photograph him in a wheelchair. It is another thing to point out that a man with major physical and mental deficits was running this country, and they were protecting him. And those deficits, especially mentally, have continued to unfold.
Yes.
And again, I will remind people that a wonderful psychiatrist named Dr. Bandy Lee and a group of other psychiatrists and medical professionals formed a group, Duty to Warn.
Duty to Warn,
to let people know that he was a clear and present danger, that he lacked the mental capacity.
That's right. That came out of Nazi Germany, the Duty to Warn, because of the danger that they saw could happen if they didn't warn people of this kind of behavior, of this kind of malignant, narcissistic sociopath. I don't understand. This is what I don't understand. And I appreciated this, Sue, the other day when you called Stephanie and you said, you've never been afraid of Donald Trump. I'm the same way. I don't fear him. I've never feared him. I don't understand these people that do fear him. He has a crazy base. He has a crazy base that is willing to do violence for him. That's what people really are afraid of. But as far as cognitive, I hear a lot of times, oh, he's lost a step. No, he has been like this. He's always been like this. There's something wrong with him.
Yes.
That's why they wrote that book. There's something wrong with him.
Yes, and we've had warning after warning after warning all throughout his entire tenure. Rachel Maddow did a master class in showing and connecting all the dots and showing everybody his ties to Russia, all of the criminality that was going on while he was in the White House, and then Bill Barr covering up for him, and et cetera, and the cognitive problems, and on. And this
Bill
man
Barr has talked about it now. Yeah, now he talks about it.
Now a warning.
Now a warning.
All these people, they're like John Kelly telling us how horrible he is, and he should never be allowed to be president again.
Yeah.
He shouldn't hold any office at all.
He's got fucking classified documents strewn all over Mar-a-Lago,
and then he's waving them around. We're at the brink of war with Iran, and who knows what he was waving around our war strategies with Iran and our vulnerabilities.
Yeah.
Who knows what they know?
He's just a bully. He's a stupid, ugly bully. I mean, there's no redeeming qualities. I keep saying,
nothing.
I don't understand how people fall in love with strong men and bullies and somehow think that connotes strength when all it really connotes is weakness.
Yes. Yeah.
That's why E. Jean Carroll's words were so powerful. He is nothing. He was nothing. It is time for the press to wake the fuck up.
Right.
Well,
and start protecting the American people.
Yep.
And they're going to be sorry if they don't, because they're one of the people. The first things he's going to destroy is the freedom of the press.
100%.
So can I tell you guys a Nazi story?
Go ahead. Tell us the Nazi story.
Okay, so for any of your listeners who don't know this, and I'm sure almost everyone has heard me, I am the daughter of Holocaust survivors. And as such, I feel I bring a unique perspective into the issues, which is why we're not going to talk about Israel today and Gaza and Hamas. Because my surviving...
That'll be another podcast.
Yeah, because my surviving clan are all Israelis. So I get a lot of information. But that is for another day. So my parents were slave laborers. They lived in the city of Łódź, which is Lodz, so I'm going to pronounce it Lodz, even though it's Woods if you're Polish. And that became a ghetto, a slave labor ghetto. And for 5 years, my parents were slaves. They were not paid. They watched people being killed and tortured around them. And my father was in the resistance. And my father monitored a secret radio. So, and any kind of information that went to the Jewish people in the ghetto was illegal, 100% shut down, illegal. Over the course of the 5 years, there were 4 crystal sets of radios that they were able to construct, and 2 of them were discovered, and many people were killed. But the resistance line never broke. Mm-hmm. Never broke. And when my parents were liberated in January of 45, That radio is now at a museum north of Haifa called the Ghetto Fighters Resistance Museum.
Mm-hmm.
That's a side story. The story I want to tell is that when the ghetto, which was a walled off, barbed wire part of the city of Lodz, where Jews had been, was filled with hundreds of thousands of Jews from around Europe. German Jews, Polish Jews, Austrian Jews, French, anyone, they put in there, they needed laborers. And my father always spoke about the German Jewish veterans who came off the trains. And he said they would walk into the ghetto and they came in wearing their German World War I uniforms.
Yep.
They always considered themselves Germans first and Jews second. They could not understand how the German army and the SS looked at them as the enemy when they were fellow soldiers.
Mm-hmm.
So they marched in there, absolutely certain the SS would go, oh, duh, I'm sorry, come join us. We didn't realize you're really one of us.
Mm.
Yeah.
And my father would just always shake his head and laugh and say, yeah, they were the first to go. They never lasted long.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah, I know.
either Germans, sensing a threat, just killed them outright.
Yes.
Or
Yeah.
they committed suicide when they realized they had no value to them.
Yes.
And so to anyone who's listening or anyone who has a family member who's a Trumper, who thinks this can't happen to them, that it's fine to have a dictatorship because it won't affect them,
Mm-hmm.
wake up.
Mm-hmm.
You're
Yeah.
next.
Yes.
Yeah. I saw a story about a true story about a German Jew who had a shop. I can't remember what the shop was, but when the Nazis showed up, he came out in his full uniform from World War I, and he thought, this would protect him.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, they beat the hell out of him, and he actually did go back inside and he killed himself.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, my father saved. Well, there's a whole other story, which is no time for, about the end of it, where my father was directly responsible for saving about 750 lives.
Mm-hmm.
But
Wow.
every day he would go downstairs after listening. My father learned English, French, Russian, in addition to Yiddish and Polish, because he would monitor the news. And my joke to him always was, well, Dad, what language do you dream in? And he'd go, all of them.
Mm-hmm.
What was your dad's name? What was his name?
My dad's name was Abraham Letterman, L-E-D-R, and his name is on the radio.
I love a Sheldon.
But it is a very meaningful
Yes.
artifact and relic for us. It is profoundly moving.
Yeah, I bet.
But I just wanted to say, I'm sorry. It's just people.
That was a profound story, though.
So what would happen is he would listen to a broadcast, and then he'd make his way downstairs, and he would start to pass the news. And one guy would say to him every night when my father would transmit the information, he'd say, now that's my dinner, and I can live another day.
Wow.
Information.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so for this media to willfully keep information, see, I get very emotional.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I know the risk,
Yes.
the bravery and the risks people took
Yes.
to keep information alive,
Yes.
my antipathy and contempt
Yes.
for modern American media literally has no bounds.
Absolutely.
So, again, I will tell them to wake up.
Yes, and so if we bring that into the current day, so these blacks for Trump, these women Trumpers, these Latinos for Trump, okay? You are not protected. You will not be protected. And so when we were talking about Taylor Swift this morning, it is absolutely not only good for business, but imperative. As American citizens, if you are in the arts, you must speak up. If you are in the media, you must speak up. We have the whole reason that we started this podcast when we did was because we wanted to add our voices to the many voices, to your voice, Sue, to all of the amazing podcasters that we listen to and align ourselves with, to the progressive media. It's a very small percentage of the media, but it is there. And I am so excited. This is my exciting news for you.
Okay.
To share with you guys. that there is a programming change at our beloved WCPT 820 AM, Chicago's Progressive Talk Radio, starting on Monday. We will have our beloved Richard from Chicago. He will be taking over the 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. Central Standard Time slot. And that will be starting this Monday.
Bravo.
That is great news. That is great news.
And so he will be the lead-in for Stephanie Miller at 8 a.m.
That is great news.
So let me, I want to thank you guys for letting me be here and letting me go on and listening to my words. But I'm going to finish with the words of someone else, a lovely man named Mohammed Safa. The best voting advice. Voting isn't marriage. It's public transport. You're not waiting for the one. You're getting on a bus. And if there isn't one going exactly to your destination, you don't stay home and sulk. You take the one that's going closest to where you want to be.
Exactly.
That's exactly what I have said to my nieces, my nephews, and my children. This is what it is. You can get on that bus and you can work to change the route to get it exactly where you want it to be. But we are not.
Yeah. Oh, that bus isn't taking me all the way, so forget it.
Yeah. The other bus is going straight into a ditch.
That's right.
Exactly.
That's right. So, Sue, thank you so much for joining us.
Really
it was a
it.
pleasure,
Yes.
and you are welcome back anytime.
Absolutely.
Let's do this again, and I gotta go, you guys. I got some laundry to do, so I'm gonna say goodbye, and thank you so much for the conversation, Anita.
Thank you, ladies.
And Sue.
Thank you again, Sue.
All right.
Seriously.
Just a pleasure.
Until next time.